Hello there. We are so happy to be here today to talk about the Wonder Years. For you who do not know, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Pamela Deneuve, and I have been coaching lawyers for about close to 30 years. And I'm part of the movement that's called the Wonder Years. And the Wonder Years is Gen X and Boomer attorneys are entering their last and best era of their law practices. In the past, when lawyers, became boomers or whatever, they were kind of put to pasture or they kind of coasted. But we're saying that this can really be a good time of reinvention. And so every Wednesday at 12:30 for 15 minutes, I'm going to bring on someone who I am just inspired by how they have approached their Wonder Years. And today I'm very pleased to introduce Lisa Lang. And Lisa, I'm going to let you tell them about where what you're doing and your role right now, and about what you've been doing these last few years to reinvent yourself. That you're just continuing to grow and expand, and how you have different choices right now.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name is Lisa Lang. I'm currently serving as the Vice President and General Counsel here at Ohio Northern University. I've been here, I think it's going on about a year and a half. Prior, prior to being here in Ohio, I was with Kentucky State University as their General Counsel just over 5 years. So, I've and you talk about this transition. When I was in Kentucky and when I started in that general counsel role, I had kids at home. I had a very full life. And what was really interesting for me is when I moved here to Ohio initially, I moved without a family for the first time. And I was very excited and invigorated with the work that I was doing. But what I was beginning to find is all of a sudden, I had a full work life, but my life after work was nowhere near as full. And so I hit this moment of, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's interesting. Could you tell a little bit about, because I watched your evolution of how dove into LinkedIn. I think it probably was after or during COVID. Is that the
Correct.
beginning of the
Yeah.
time? And could you explain to the other boomers and Gen X, like what you did to actually accentuate your leadership role in the legal community, and and how you really helped so many people?
So yeah, I would say that I really started in with respect to LinkedIn. I'm trying to think back. I think it was the fall of 2019, and I did it in the fall of 2019 because of actually something that my president at Kentucky State University did. We have something called encampment, and encampment is a time when your faculty and staff get together before the students come to have conversations about various topics. That year, we had a topic regarding social media. And, I wasn't really active on Facebook. I used LinkedIn for the purposes of finding a job. I essentially just parked my resume there. And part of that conversation and that training was, we find our students and the younger generation in social media. And so we wanted to teach our faculty and staff ways to leverage social media to help and support both the institution and our students. And so I did that. And we had a contest where we had to post something and then by the end see how many people had commented or followed or whatever. And, so I loaded it, and not surprisingly, I had zero, zilch, no engagement, nothing. But that conversation really intrigued me. And, being the general counsel, I wanted to figure out a way that I could support students and the university. And I thought, you know what? Social media is a good way for me to do it. So that's where I started. But so that's fall 2019, spring of 2020. I was so glad that I began that journey because honestly, that became almost like a lifeline for me. Because once I was in COVID, Oh my gosh, it was
Mhm.
so hard and so lonely. And I threw myself into LinkedIn like nobody's business.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so I really started that in 2020. And as we came out of COVID in 22 and 23, when we started to travel again, I started to get a whole lot of opportunities that used to be online during COVID. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, would you come speak here? Would you come, go to this event? Would you write these things? And would you do the CLE? And so I started to do it. And so 2022, 2023, holy cow, it was a lot. I didn't say no to anything. I was doing everything.
Wow. And then you started writing up for Above the Law.
Yes. And I think I'm trying to think, it was actually 2021 where I started, and I did a guest uh, post blog. It was for Mother's Esquire. So I was a guest writer for Mother's Esquire, and that Mother's Esquire still has a column, and they have a different female lawyer post something, I think, every month. And I did change. It was changing the culture of overwork. And so it was
Mhm.
because of that initial blog post and then conversations I had with the editor
Mhm.
at Above the Law that I eventually got my own column for in-house lawyers. And so I've been doing that now since I think it was 2021. So I've been doing that. I mean, I think I'm going on 3 years now.
Wow, wow, wow. So when you started looking at, your kids getting older and the things that happened, that you actually moved to your current position. So how did all of that come about? And the things to the audience I want to say that we can see that Lisa hadn't slowed down. She just sort of looked at creating momentum and visibility and making a difference, because I just got through talking to one of my clients, which I'll have her on later on in the series, is that we're here to help people. That's what makes, that's why we're here. It makes our heart sing when we know that we are helping people. And we know that, especially in the legal community, in the in-house of counsel, which I know you focus on, there are people who need this inspiration and need the support. So tell us a little bit about how all that transpired of you changing firms and your whole thought processes as you've gone on and changed universities, actually. Yes.
Right. And and to your point about visibility, and part of the thought I also had. So my decision to move forward into LinkedIn was multifaceted, multi-layered. So yes, in some ways I wanted to support the institution, but I also thought about, there's an institutional brand which I need to support, but I also need to start working on my own personal brand and
Mhm.
getting out there and getting that visibility. So to your point, up until that point, all of my jobs were in Kentucky. And I felt like, and I got almost every single one of those positions. I was invited to apply.
Yes.
And so I got to thinking, I don't know how to actually, if I ever wanted to move up in my profession, in my industry, I've gotten as high and as far as I think I can get in Kentucky. I want to be seen outside of Kentucky. And so a national search firm sent me an email, which I'm sure they send to a lot of other lawyers, about the current position that I have. And you said, I think, based on our previous conversations, this is something you would be interested in. Would you like to apply? So I think that doing that LinkedIn and developing a personal brand and getting that visibility, that is the thing that is going to help you move into other spaces. And and for me, I was kind of at this point where, okay, am I going to stay here in Kentucky and just stay here till I retire and kind of, or am I still ready to move on to other opportunities? And so, yeah, I moved to this opportunity. I was thrilled and excited to have it. And yeah, I don't think you're ever too old. And I also, this year is my first year. I'm turning 55, and I did an audit of my retirement account, the pension system in Kentucky. And so I had the opportunity to say, am I powering down or am I not? And I
Mhm.
looked at it and I was like, okay, this is great. I could get something at 55, but 60 would be even better. And I'm
Mhm.
not ready to stop. And I
Yes.
enjoy what I do too much.
I love that. And I want to accentuate the point that for those who are not, really familiar with LinkedIn, or you're kind of on the fringes, or, it may or may not be LinkedIn, but it's something outside of your comfort zone. But it's not easy. I was sharing the other day that I remember I had, been out of, I'd been like on a sabbatical, and I had been out of the world for a while. And all of a sudden there was social media and Twitter and all this. And I literally sat down in the restaurant with my coach crying. Like, how do you do this? Fast forward, I now have 22,000 followers, but that was just 8 years ago. So it's not like this easy evolution. It's literally getting outside of your comfort zone, and you feel like you got all thumbs, and it's not easy. Tell us a little bit, Lisa, how you overcame that unfamiliarity with technology and all of those things, like we did to get on this live stream.
Oh, but we did it, Pamela. We did it. And we didn't stress out. And, back in 2020, I would have been like, I can't do this. So just let me say, I've watched your trajectory over the last 3 years. And oh my God, if there was anybody that I would use as a model, your brand is so polished, so professional. I love it. And I would aspire to do, as I progress in these wonder years, you would be my guiding star that I would try and to emulate in my own way, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do is fabulous. So yeah, when I started LinkedIn, I got with 50 other lady lawyers, and we put out a book, and we called it was networked. And my chapter was on leaning into LinkedIn, because I am one of these people that I was horrible at in-person networking. And, I initially was what I would call a lurker on LinkedIn, and I was very hesitant to utilize it. And it wasn't like it happened, to your point, Pamela. This doesn't happen overnight. This is 3 or 4 years of work to cultivate what it is that I've cultivated, and I'm not even where you're at. And so, what I found people on LinkedIn who I started commenting, and then started to tell me I had a voice, and that voice that people needed to hear, and they started working to amplify my voice. And so in my chapter LinkedIn, the one I attribute it mainly to is Alex Sue, because Alex, he and I ended up having, one of those virtual coffees, because he was probably his post was one of the first posts that I ever commented on. And he told me with that post that my comments, that it blew up with respect to the section where I had commented. And he really encouraged me and pushed me to go out there and do my own post. And then in LinkedIn, the chapter I did, I described the first time I was vulnerable in a post, and I was so embarrassed and so not tech savvy. If I was that embarrassed, I should have deleted the post, and instead I deleted the app off my phone as is, and so I got back on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my God, the post is still there. And nothing bad happened. And in fact, I had so many wonderful and supportive comments. And so between, getting with those 50 lady lawyers, getting the support from Alex Sue, and then starting to do the commenting and having people support me in my own voice, that's kind of how I powered up to where I am now.
Right. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of our session, but could you kind of share like where you are now with regard to your children, and what are you looking about for your next steps of your wonder years?
Yeah, and I would say I took the first quarter. It's funny we're having this conversation. I took a pause for this first quarter. I did Contracts Con in Vegas, but after that, I turned everything down. And the few things I did said I was going to do, I declined and pulled back, because I want to be intentional. It dawned on me that the difference between now and before is, before I had on my plate the have-to-haves, and now this plate is pretty empty, but it's intentionally empty, because I have the ability now to choose what's on this plate and what I can do outside of the work.
Yes, absolutely. So what do you think? What can we look forward to seeing in the next year, Lisa?
I'm still thinking. I'm still thinking. I do think it's probably I am thinking about doing probably more writing.
Mm,
Yeah, it's
you're a
probably
great
more
writer.
writing.
You're
Yeah.
a great writer.
Thank
Well,
you.
I want to thank everyone for joining us on the Wonder Years, because we are saying boomers and Gen X, we don't retire, we don't shrink back, we evolve. And you could just see in the conversation of how Lisa has evolved, and she's not even stopped yet. She's looking at her next area. And I want to also quit with saying that I really appreciate, Lisa, that you're taking the time to pause and be intentional. You know, it's like it gets to make sense of how we expand. It gets to make sense with how we evolve. And that way we can create the life that we want. I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, and I not only say to people they need a coach, I have a coach. So I came down here for a whole day to spend a day with my coach and be coached, because I have to keep evolving. And to get evolving, we have to keep getting input from those outside of our head. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for setting a great example for the Wonder Years. And also, thank you for tackling the tech of getting here on StreamYard so that we can put this segment on for our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.